want you to turn to an Old Testament book in the Bible, Old Testament prophet by the name of Habakkuk. Habakkuk chapter number 2. And I want to begin this morning asking that you would look with me at Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 1 through 4. Listen to the words of Habakkuk. It is almost like Habakkuk is rewriting this during a time that we're living in and this climate that we're living in now. Listen to verse number 1 through 4, Habakkuk 2. I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and I will watch to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. And the Lord answered and says, write the vision, make it plain upon tables, make it plain upon tables, make it plain upon tables, and that he who runneth readeth. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, and it will not tarry. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by faith. I want to talk to you this morning about trusting God when you can't see it. Will you just go ahead and say that this morning? Trusting God when you can't see it. Trusting God when you can't see it. Ladies and gentlemen, these days that we have just come out of and witnessed of 2020, the days that we have come out of, there was times when we thought that we wasn't even going to make it. It seems like that we really didn't know or couldn't see our way coming out. Ladies and gentlemen, right here in the beginning of the year, right here at the beginning of the year, just a few days into this new year, we've seen so much that has happened and transpired, even in our nation capital, to see how mob crowds surged and invaded upon our capital. Yes, we see a whole lot going on. We see financial setbacks. We've seen diseased bodies that are being ravished by the coronavirus. Even we've seen where people are having emotional breakdowns and where they are having emotional breakdowns and even broken relationships. And not only to top that all off, but then we see all of these natural disasters that are taking place. It would almost make you wonder, does God really have a plan for our life? Ladies and gentlemen, in our discourse this morning, the prophet Habakkuk has doubted the plan of God, and not only has he doubted the plan of God, he has despair over the patience of God, and then he has become discouraged with the purpose of God. And I think I need to say that again, because many of us may feel that same way, where we have doubted the plan of God. We are despaired over the patience of God, and even become discouraged with the purpose of God. Ladies and gentlemen, he is watching his society crumble at the very core. It is almost only to feel as if God is deaf and dumb to that situation. And you know, brothers and sisters, I'm hearing Habakkuk probably asking God, he asked the question, God, are you really there? Are you really there? God, God, with things so out of control, do you really have things in control? Is everything all right, God? If so, are you sure you know what you are doing? I'm thinking in my mind just a while, just wondering, is Habakkuk wondering, God, does you have everything in control? He has received an answer to his question, only now to be faced with another question. He is now faced the situation if God is really in control, and even when things were out of control, then how am I supposed to live? And you know, child of God, when I look at this text, there have been people who've been wondering, is America is out of control? And you know, brothers and sisters, it is a question that is very relevant to our day as well, because what's supposed to do, or what we are supposed to do in the midst of all of this corruption that is going on in the world. Just a few days ago, of chaos. Never would we've ever thought the chaos in our own capital, all of the confusion that is going on. Are we supposed to live a life like this? Ladies and gentlemen, how does God expect us to live? Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that Habakkuk, when I read this text, it is almost like Habakkuk has been looking into the wonder of a miracle and seeing everything that is going on in our land. And child of God, I want to tell you that you're going to have to learn how to trust God even when you can't see it. I know that these are times, that child of God, that we wonder how we're going to make it, but I just believe that in 2021, as the theme for our church is the year of open doors, let's find an answer to this hard question that we see in our text today. Let's find an answer to the hard question by considering the plight of this prophet, because this prophet is in a plight, and I'm sure that he's not only in a plight, but it seems as though he wants to catch a flight. And I don't know about you all, but you probably have been in a situation where your flight and plight has got you in a situation. But I want you to come with me, because this text is quickly unraveling in my mind, because I want you to see something for just a moment. The prophet looks to God. That's the first thing that I want you all to discover in our text this morning. First of all, the prophet looks to God. Why don't you say that this morning? The prophet looks to God, because here again in verse number 1, he is saying, I will stand upon my watch, and I will set me upon the tower. Now notice what he is saying. I want you to see that he said, I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower. The word stand means to stay or to station or to continue. In other words, the prophet had made up in his mind that he was going to plant himself firmly before the Lord in prayer and would not move until he received an answer from the Lord. And ladies and gentlemen, I believe that in 2021 that all of us will have to be like that prophet, that you're going to have to look to God, that you're going to have to say to your own self that I'm going to be firmly planted. I'm not going to move, because we must all remember how the old folks used to say, he may not come when you want him, but he's always on time. Habakkuk sees himself as a watchman. He sees himself as a watchman. He is going to stand on his watch and set upon the tower. He was waiting for a message from God that he would not only answer his question, but one that he could share with the people of Judah. Listen, in the ancient days, watchmen were responsible to warn the city of approaching danger. It was the watchman's job to let everyone know that what are the nights and what things are going on. It was his responsibility that he would be faithful to the task. To listen here, it was his responsibility. It was the watchman's responsibility to let those who were inside of the walls know when danger would be approaching, because, ladies and gentlemen, if he did not warn the people, blood stain would be upon his hand. People would die. It was a serious responsibility to be a watchman, one who shares, one who announces. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what my responsibility is as a watchman. I'm a watchman, and I want you to know that there are people who are saying to me, Brother Carter, what do you see in 2021? We are responsible. We have the responsibility to watch. Not only do we have the responsibility, church, to watch, but it is our responsibility to warn. We have the responsibility to watch what God will say and then go and then share it with the loss of a dying world. Ladies and gentlemen, if we are unfaithful to the task, then our hand will be stained with the blood of those who die and spend the rest of their life in eternity of hell, a burning hell. Oh, brothers and sisters, I'm getting a little happy because I want you to notice that the prophet looks to God. He looks to God. Let me see, can I work this out? Can I take my time and work it out? Because thus we see Habakkuk on his watch, in his tower. He's in his watch, in his tower, on his watch, in his tower, looking to God. What was he looking for? Ladies and gentlemen, what was he looking for? First of all, he was looking for heavenly revelation. Oh, you know, I said heavenly revelation. Can y'all just go on and say heavenly revelation? That's really what he was looking for. He was looking for heavenly revelation. The prophet declared that I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and will I watch to see what he will say unto me. In other words, Habakkuk is looking to see what God was doing and to see what God will say. He has climbed to the height to get away from all of the confusion of the streets. He has elevated himself above all of the perplexities and pressures and the problems of his society. He has opened mind to the truth of God. He has opened his ears to the voice of God. He is long to hear what God has to say. He looks to see what will he do, and again he is going to stand on his watch. He is not moving. He is not leaving until he receives a word from the Lord. I tell you what he was wanting. He wanted some heavenly revelation. Oh, I don't know about you all, but ladies and gentlemen, lest I hold you a little too long, but I do want to hold you until you get unheld, because I believe that somebody that's looking at me this morning needs some heavenly revelation. Yes, some heavenly revelation. Go ahead and just say heavenly revelation. Yeah, he needed some heavenly revelation. And he had made up in his mind, God, I'm not moving. I'm going to stand here in this watchtower until you give me an answer. But ladies and gentlemen, the prophet looks to God for heavenly revelation. He's looking to God for heavenly revelation. But he also, secondly, I noticed something else about this prophet looking to God. Not only do we see heavenly revelation also, but we see the human expectation. Human expectation, because although Habakkuk was optimistic, he was also a realist. In other words, he concluded verse 1 by saying, I will stand upon my watch and set upon my tower and will watch to see what he will say unto me, and I shall answer, then am I reproved. That's what he was waiting for. He was looking for human expectation. Listen to the words, I am reproved. That word reproved speaks of being chastened or corrected. The word comes from a word to be right. In other words, Habakkuk was waiting on an answer from God that as a watchman he would be responsible for sharing with the people of Judah. However, he was also expecting to be criticized and chastened by the people because of what he was going to tell them, that things that he was getting ready to hear. And nevertheless, in spite of the ridicule and the rejection and the reproof from the people, Habakkuk knew that someone had to be wrong and somebody had to be right. The prophet knew that God would be right by what he was saying and what he did. Ladies and gentlemen, the truth of the matter is that there's always that God will be right. The truth of the matter is that there have always been and always be those that, brothers and sisters, that will criticize the Lord's message. Or they're going to be the people right now who will criticize the Lord's message. There will always be those who will criticize the Lord's message as well as the Lord's messenger. Not only the Lord's message, but the Lord's messenger. In other words, they will always be those who will reject and ridicule and reprove us for being faithful to the call and the command that the Lord. And ladies and gentlemen, I have to give you the words of that preacher by the name of H.A. Ironside, who says there are 3 ways to keep people from talking about you. And I think that you ought to need to know those. He said there are 3 ways to keep people from talking about you, and that is if you do nothing, have nothing, or said nothing. If you do nothing, if you do nothing, have nothing, and say nothing. I think that's probably a good way to keep anybody from saying anything about you. If you do nothing, say nothing, or have nothing. But ladies and gentlemen, in other words, if you are doing something for God and have something from God and have something to say for God, or buckle up, get your seat belts on, because criticism and ridicule will come your way. And I want you to know that, child of God, I believe that, brothers and sisters, I have come to the conclusion that there are 3 sides to every story. There are 3 sides to every story. And let me tell you what that is. There is your side, my side, and God's side. That's always 3 sides to the story. It's their side, there is your side, my side, and God's side. Your side may not be right, my side may not be right, but ladies and gentlemen, you can rest assured, put your money on it, that God's side will always be right. It matters not what you might say or what you might think. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that God's side is always right. It may not be what you want it to be, but God's side is always right. Like the prophet, in the midst of chaos, in the midst of confusion, in the midst of despair and doubt, in the midst of all of what was going on, he's watching for God. But I want you to know that I see one other thing that I want to show you. Not only do we see the prophet looks to God, but ladies and gentlemen, the prophet lingers with God. Can you say linger? You know, he not only looks to God, but now we see a prophet who lingers with God. In other words, listen to what verse number 2 says, and the Lord answered me, and the Lord answered me, and the Lord answered me. I am sure that Habakkuk wondered if he had heard God right, and when he began to answer his prayer, he has looked to God for revelation with expectation, and now he begins to wait for God. He is lingering with God. He's waiting on God. And ladies and gentlemen, I want you all to know that he may not come when you want him to come, but he's always, and you know, you've got to be willing right now in 2021, willing to wait on God. Listen, don't get in a hurry. Don't get in a hurry. Listen here. God is not some little butler that you call with a little ringing bell. You got to wait on him. He may not come when you want him, but he's always on time. He was willing. He was willing to wait as long as God gave him the answer. And ladies and gentlemen, I want you all to know that God has his own allotted time. And the prophet learned that we must learn. And I think that all of us have to learn what the prophet, after he realized he looked to God, he had to linger to God, because he learned that God is never in a hurry. And ladies and gentlemen, we would probably have said in 2020 that God, will you come on? Will you come on? Will you come on? It looked like that we would never ever get out of 2020. But ladies and gentlemen, you got to learn how this prophet, he learned that God will work on his schedule, by his system, and by his own standards. I want you to know that I'm feeling good right now, because there's a few things that I just need you all to see about this prophet lingering with God, the authority of God's spoken word. That's what I want you all to see in this lingering, because after the season of lingering with God, Habakkuk realized two things. First of all, the authority of God's spoken word, because right here in verse number 2, and he says, and the Lord answered me and said, write the vision, and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Ladies and gentlemen, Habakkuk realized and the magnitude of what God was about to do, as well as what God was about to say. He realized that when God speaks, he does so with great authority. He realized that when God speaks, he speaks with great authority. He realized that when God finishes, he shall speak and not lie. That's what he said. But in the end, it shall speak and not lie. The authority of God's spoken word is demonstrated in these two distinct ways, brothers and sisters. There is the season of it. The answer of God would give you, brothers and sisters, I want you to notice that God declared, for the vision is yet for appointed time. It is for an appointed time. And notice that Habakkuk talks about that time. That Habakkuk time was that the Jews had to wait for the hope and the prayer 33 centuries for the Messiah to come. They were waiting. It was their waiting period that could be traced all the way back to Genesis chapter 3, verse number 15. God had prophesied that he would put enmity between the woman and between the seed, thou seed and her seed, and he shall bruise his head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. And still God is telling the prophet, the vision is yet for an appointed time. And I want you to know this was because God hadn't forgotten his promise. And ladies and gentlemen, I know that some of you all said, I know God told me it was going to happen. I know that you said that God said it was going to happen. But listen here, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know it shall come to pass. Can you just go ahead and say, it shall? Go ahead and tell somebody, it shall come to pass. Go ahead and tell somebody, it shall come to pass. Oh, brothers and sisters, it was because God had not forgotten his promise, was no longer intending to bring it to pass. No, brothers and sisters, it was for an appointed time, but yet it had not arrived. And I want you to go ahead and shout right now, because he is a God who's always on time. Can you just go ahead and tell your neighbor, he's always on time. Yes, he's always on time. Listen here, he's a God who creates time because he is not controlled by time. Yeah, he created time, but he's not controlled by time. He does not operate on a Timex nor a Rolex. He operates according to his own schedule and his own system. And therefore, that this is why that he's never early, neither is he never late. Now, that may not make no sense, but he's neither early nor never late. Because let me tell you why he's neither early or neither late. Is because he's always right on time. You ought to just help somebody and just type that in the comment section and say he right on time. It's because he's waiting for his own appointed time to meet our needs and the answer to our prayer and solve our problem. I'm telling you that God is getting ready to do some things in your life, and it's getting ready to be on and popping. Can I get somebody to say on and popping? I just believe that if you just don't get an answer on Monday, get back down on your knees on Tuesday. If you don't get an answer on Tuesday, get back down on your knees on Wednesday. If it don't come on Thursday, do it again Friday. I'm telling you that God is on time. Go ahead and shout up in this. The authority of God's spoken word is not only demonstrated by the season of it, but by the reason for it. Not only the season for it, but the reason for it. And there was a specific season in which God was going to speak, and there was also a specific reason for which God was going to speak, because the Bible tells us in verse number 2 of Habakkuk that he says, write the vision, make it plain upon tables that he may run that readeth. God revealed the reason for the vision that he gave to Habakkuk. Habakkuk is to take the vision to the people and share it with them. And the Lord commanded Habakkuk, write down the visions on tablets. The idea of those tablets is in the marketplace, upon which the public notice would written and grave it in clay and large clear letter, so that everybody, those tablets was to be erected in the city marketplace, on the highway, in the temple courts, so that that people could see them in these specific areas, that it wouldn't be something that nobody wouldn't know. Everybody, it would be an attention getter. It would be an attractive attention to the people that they could run, and after they would read it, Ron could read it. They would, Ron could read it. Habakkuk is making the writing plain, the public, and not only is he talking about making it plain in public, but he's talking about that you need, in other words, I want you to know is that he's making it permanent. He's saying, in other words, he said, write it down, the revelation of God, post it plainly, publicly, and permanently, so generations after generations could read it, so your children can see it, and whether they walk by it or run by it, they are able to see it. God desired for them to write the word in their hearts. He desires that for his word to be made plain, public. In fact, every day he wants us to have it in our workplace, in schools, in homes, and in the marketplace, that you and I are to be living epistles. Read. Men ought to be able to look at our lives. Oh, my soul getting happy that we ought to take God's revealed word and declare it to an entire world to see, so that generations after generations will be affected. In other words, it is not the word of man, but the spoken word of God. It is the authoritative word of God. But not only the authority of God's spoken word, but it also leads me to another thought, is the certainty of God's specific word. Because write the vision is yet for an appointed time. Am I helping you right here? For an appointed time, in the end it shall speak and not lie. I want you all to see that child of God is that he is awaiting, after waiting 33 centuries of watching and waiting for the Messiah to come. I'm sure that Habakkuk wondered if God could ever make himself known to his people. He allowed sin to run rampant in the land. He allowed the law to be paralyzed. He allowed bad nations to be judged by wicked kings. And you know, brothers and sisters, I'm not calling nothing out, but I just believe that we've just come out of some of that kind of stuff. But ladies and gentlemen, I want you all to know that I'm sure that Habakkuk thought, will he ever speak? But however, God makes it plain to the prophet, for the vision is for an appointed time, for in the end it shall speak and not lie. For though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come and it will not tarry. Listen here, Habakkuk must learn to watch for God and wait on God. He learned that God is not merely crushing evil in the world, for he could just blink his eye and wipe things out, but rather God is making men and molding nations so that ultimately that he will be enthroned and exalted as the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. However, God reminds him that he was to wait. It will surely come and it will not tarry. Listen here, child of God. Finally, I want you to not only see what the prophet looked to God, the prophet lingered with God, but I want to give you this last observation. Not only did he look to God, not only did he linger with God, but then lastly, the prophet leaned on God. Can y'all just go ahead and say that tonight, this morning, that the prophet leans on God? The prophet leans on God because, listen to what he says in verse 4, behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by faith. That's where I've been trying to get all morning, because you've got to trust God when you can't see it, because the Bible says the just shall live by faith. He had to, oh brothers and sisters, he had to lean on God. I don't know about you all, but the prophet heart has been filled with difficult questions. He has wrestled internally and externally as well as eternally. But as we come to this verse number 4 and catch a glimpse of the diamonds in the darkness of depravity, oh brothers and sisters, I want you to see these diamonds in the darkness of depravity and the answer of how we are supposed to live in the midst of a chaos and confusion all around. I want you to notice the rejected faith is because we read that his soul, which is lifted up, is not upright in him. Lord, but look at, Lord have mercy, look at not only the rejection of faith, Lord, but I want you to see the reward of faith, because contrary to the boastfulness and lustfulness and the forgetful souls, the prophet said, the just shall live by faith. Let the church say amen. I don't know about y'all, but the just shall live by faith. In other words, God made it plain to the prophet that evil is marked for overthrow. God will judge it in his own time and in his own way. He may seem tardy, but pride will never go unpaid. And however, the righteousness will survive, because the future belongs to the righteous. I don't know about y'all, but all I'm telling you, that in 2021, the just shall live by faith. Lord, 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 my soul is getting happy, because I want you to know you gotta live by faith. You gotta live by faith. You may not have it, but just keep on living by faith. In essence, God is saying that he will reject those who will deny the faith, but he will turn around and reward those who are as a demonstration of God's faith. He will turn from the proud heart, and he will turn to the pure heart. I'm getting happy. I wish you would just get up and turn around and say, I'm living my best days. Let the church say amen. Yeah. In other words, he would take what God said and said, Lord, I know I can't understand it, but I'm getting ready to see it. I'm getting ready to see it. That's all I'm trying to tell you. Everything that you haven't been able to see, this year, you getting ready to see it. The just, yeah, the just shall live by favor. That's all I'm trying to tell you. That's all. That's all. That's all. Woo! That's all that you and I got is our favor. Mother, hold on to your favor. Father, hold on. Sister, hold on. Because the Lord answered and told him, right, the vision, make it plain upon tables that he may run that readeth it. For the vision is yet for appointed time, but in the end it shall speak and not lie. And though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, and it will not tarry. Wait on it, regardless of what you may be encountering. Wait for it. Although the storms in your life may be furious, wait for it. Although you may be encountering, although you may feel that you're not being confronted with all of the temptation, wait for it. Although your finances may be messed up, wait for it. Wait for it, because it will surely come and it will not tarry. Can I get you to go ahead and tell somebody in your house, wait for it. Get up on your feet. Go running around in the house and say, although you may be limited by your opportunity, wait for it. Although we may be in a national crisis, America has been in trouble, but it shall speak and not lie. Although the nights may be dark and lonely, all you shucks here, but wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. Although you may be faced with some great disappointment, wait for it. Although you may not understand what is happening, for the vision is yet for appointed time, but in the end it shall speak and not lie. Although the situation may be discouraging, it shall speak and not lie. Although you may be at the end of your rope, although your body may be physically exhausted, you can't take another pain, but hey, wait for it. Although God's blessing seem to be disappearing, but I want to tell y'all, it shall speak and not lie. Although you may have some wrongs and you may have made a bad decision, but wait on it. Wait for it, for the vision is far upon it time, but in the end it shall speak and not lie. Although prayer seemed to go unanswered, although the devil may be fighting you every step of the way, but wait for it, Salon. Wait for it, Salon. Wait on the Lord. Lord, help me. Lord, help me. Furthermore, don't forget that there's no problem that God can't solve. There is no situation that God cannot change. There is nothing that God cannot handle. Wait for it. Oh, my soul get happy. There is no hardship that God cannot help you through. There is no sorrow that God cannot comfort. There's no burden that God cannot lift. Can you get on the floor now? The dance floor is open. There's no field that God cannot move. There's no crisis that he cannot handle. There's no doubt that he cannot dissolve. There's no enemy. There's no enemy. There's no enemy that God cannot subdue. There's no hurt that he cannot heal. How do I know? He laid his hand on my sick body. He laid his hand on my sick body. He laid his hand. Yeah. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Wait on him. Wait on him. It shall come to pass. I gotta get out of here. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Though it tarry, wait on it. 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 Shucks here. I gotta quit here. Wait on it. Can you get up and shout right now? Wait on it. Wait on it. Trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord when you cannot see. Ladies and gentlemen, I know that these are chaotic days. I know that we are going through some turbulent times. Believe it, but we're going to get through it. Your mama got through it. Your daddy got through it. 2021 is going to be the year of open doors.
I know how you feel just when you're enjoying the message. We've got to go. We're going to come back next week and do it all over again. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to stop here and extend the invitation to discipleship. If you are not saved, have not given your life to Jesus, I want you to know that this is a great day to give your life to Jesus. If you don't even have a church or a pastor, I would love to be your pastor so that you can be a part of this band of believers called SCI, a place where you can belong. And we're going to tell you how ways you can connect with us. Listen to those ways.
If you just made that decision, we are so excited. You just made the best decision of your life. Our E-Team wants to help you take the next steps in your Christian walk. Text SAVED or JOIN to 404-548-8009. And a member of our eCampus team will be in contact with you. Welcome to the family.